handling of the car is good, and with the punch of the electric motor, well, it picks up really nicely as well. DS does things differently, or at least it has done in the past. If we forget the DS models of yesteryear and focus on what the brand has become in more recent times, well, it was a bit of an also-ran, wasn't it? But this is the new DS4. And I tell you what, this is the best DS to date. It's designed to rival cars like the Mercedes A-Class, BMW 1 Series, and of course, the Volkswagen Golf. It's got the engines, the tech, and it's got that high quality feel to it, so enough to potentially beat the best of them. So sit tight, subscribe, and let's get started. As I just said then, this new DS4 is the best DS for a generation. Sharply styled, loaded with equipment, and as you'll soon find out, decent to drive too. It comes with a choice of petrol, diesel and plug-in hybrid powertrains, and whisper it, there's an electric version coming later too. So if you thought the exterior was eye-catching, well, take a look at this. It's not like some of the more recent DS efforts where you kind of felt like everything was like over-styled, it was all too much, like the designers didn't know when to stop designing. It's sleek, it's well built. All right, there is a bit of chintz. You know, there's a lot of diamond detailing everywhere, diamond lights, diamonds everywhere, but that's just personal taste. The nav is easy to operate. All right, it's not as responsive as ideally I'd like, but crucially, you get this long line of shortcut bars there, so you're not faffing around for key functions because there's nothing worse. And weirdly, there's this, which is an extra touchscreen. And I mean, you hold it down and you can set up your shortcuts here. I mean, it's quite nice, I suppose, but at the same time, it's like, it's a bit surplus to requirements, isn't it? I mean, it's a little bit Audi, but I suppose that's the point. This is the car that DS hopes is going to fight the good fight against those high-flying German brands. And I suppose if you can't beat them, join them. Quality is really very good inside the DS4. The buttons and switches have a solid feel to them, and the air vents are all hidden away behind the dashboard for a cleaner appearance. This is the performance line, so some of the leather is swapped out for Alcantara, which overall gives it a slightly sportier appearance. So you get a choice of petrol, diesel or plug-in hybrid when you order your DS4. And this is the E-Tense 225. It's the plug-in hybrid. The E stands for electrified. Now, whereas the Peugeot 308, which the DS shares a lot of its parts with, gets the option of a slightly lower power 180 hybrid, the DS is a more premium product, so it only gets the punchier 225. So it means it's got a decent amount of shove to it. 0 to 62 miles an hour takes 7.7 seconds, but that's not necessarily what this car is all about. So before the pure electric version arrives in a couple of years, I reckon this is going to be the DS company car driver's car of choice for a few reasons. Low benefit in kind tax, decent 35-ish mile EV range, and it's just comfortable and it's refined, and I just think this setup suits the car really nicely. It isn't cheap though. This one, as tested, is a smidge over 40 grand. You'd have to be going some to spend that much on a hybrid Mercedes A-Class. Cheaper versions of the DS4 are available, of course, both in terms of equipment levels and specs, as well as engine options. If you're a private buyer and not looking for rock-bottom company car tax costs, then we'd recommend looking at the mid-range PureTech 180 petrol. That should be the sweet spot, and even in entry-level Bastille guise, should offer you all you need, including LED lights, touchscreens and alloy wheels. As well as the different trims, there's also a kind of faux SUV version called the DS4 Cross. It's purely a styling exercise with no off-road ability, not even a higher ride height. As always, full specs can be found at carbuyer.co.uk. So what's the DS4 like to drive? Well, it actually feels really sophisticated and grown up, especially as a hybrid. it's quiet, it's comfortable to drive. And in fact, it's just really comfortable in general. These seats are something else. I love them. So in terms of handling, well, the steering's really light, which is brilliant when you're zipping around town, but it could do with a bit more weight when you speed things up. But in terms of the driving, that's the car's only real weak point. The handling of the car is good, and with the punch of the electric motor, well, it picks up really nicely as well. Now, I haven't had a chance to try the diesel, but given the fall in popularity of diesel and the fact that on paper, performance-wise, it just can't compare to either the petrol or the hybrid, I reckon it's going to remain a niche choice reserved for those who are driving long distances on a regular basis. We did touch on running costs, and while there's no doubt this PHEV will appeal to the company car drivers among you, you'll need to plug it in whenever possible to realise the official fuel economy figure of 232.3 mpg. More achievable, if only for comparison purposes, will be the mid-range petrol's 43.9 mpg and CO2 emissions of 145 grams per kilometre, about what you'd expect for a car of this type. And so we come to practicality, and still the DS4 continues to impress. Headroom should be good for most adults, all right, maybe not those over 6 foot, but that's quite normal in this kind of class. Knee room, good. The only thing I would have a moan about though is the floor. So because this car has been designed for several different fuel types and transmissions, there's a lot going on under that floor, so there's not so much room to put your feet up, so that's a bit of a negative. Otherwise though, there is armrest, cup holders, ski hatch here for loading longer items, bit dark, but other than that, I would say this would be more than adequate for most people. The boot is a good size as well. Petrol and diesel DS4s get a 430 litre boot, which is bigger than you'd find in an Audi A3 or an A-Class. And even the hybrid like this doesn't sacrifice too much. 390 litres, which again is bigger than the equivalent Merc. Fold the seats down and that 430 litres expands to 1,240 litres. That's about the same, within a few litres in fact, as the VW Golf. All in, not an impractical family car. Time for some deal makers and deal breakers, I think. It may not do things like the Germans do, but the DS4 feels built to a really good standard. In fact, the interior's got some really luxurious feeling materials. The in-car tech is slick and pretty easy to use, and the hybrid system could see you running around for more than 30 miles without using a drop of petrol. It feels a bit unfair to put practicality down as a negative. The DS4 has a big boot, but rear seat packaging could be better. Ditto styling. It's subjective, but where many manufacturers play things safe, the DS4 is still a bit out there, and the French take on premium luxury won't be to all tastes. I said it at the beginning, I said it in the middle, and I'm going to say it again now. This is the best car DS have made to date. And no, it's not just a carbon copy of the Mercedes A-Class, BMW 1 Series or the Audi A3, although it does do everything those cars can do. And it adds in a little bit of French sophistication. C'est bon? If you like this video, then why not watch our review of the Audi A3 on our Family Cars playlist. As ever, thanks for watching.